MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's send it to the desert. Not Las Vegas, but the deserts of Arizona. Gamb has been courteous enough to be joining us routinely on MMA Meltdown Radio on Sirius XM Channel 167. We figured it was time to have Lou step up and in on the television edition of MMA Meltdown. Gamb from Gamb.com now joins us. Lou, it's always a pleasure. How you doing?
I'm doing great, everything well, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you, Gabriel.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Lou. I know you're very busy. You've been joining Heidi Fang on MMA Fight Corner, and I know you've been doing some work with a former colleague of mine from Las Vegas, Mr. Todd Furman and the Lines Makers. I used to do my show out of the Don Best Studios in Las Vegas, Lou, and Todd Furman was a regular on the show because his office was in my studio.
Absolutely. Great guy, Todd. We really enjoy working with him and know a lot of the guys at Don Best. They're true professionals.
All right, Lou, so let's jump in here. We got UFC Fight Night. It's remember what happened a couple of weeks ago when they went to Brazil. People were cashing lottery tickets. Forget about March Madness and perfect brackets. There was nearly a perfect bracket in the UFC. 10-1 as far as the underdogs are concerned, but 10 straight underdogs won. We know the stories of people cashing $25,000 parlays, that bet $1. We're back to Brazil, and in the early fight cards of Brazil, Lou, the Brazilians were dominant, man. They were winning like 80-90% of the time. They were just dominant. But as it's gone on, we have more Brazilians fighting other Brazilians, and we've seen the luster, the visitors going there, not quite as intimidating anymore, and we saw that with the last card.
Yeah, I think that's quite astute. You picked that up, but you're a professional too, Gabriel. I think it's also compounded, and please understand, I'm not trying to be critical or accusational here, but I think that in the light of new intensive testing, that there may be some of the edge of Brazilians fighting in Brazil. Maybe some of that is wearing off a little. And again, I'm not trying to be accusational. However, it's my business to handicap fight cards and fighters, and I have to handicap with that knowledge.
Well, that's a great point that you raise. I mean, will Vitor Belfort be the same? We saw that Bigfoot Silva was not the same recently in his fight against Frank Mir. We saw that he wasn't the same. So, we got this card. It's an intriguing card from a capping perspective. A lot of big numbers. The number in the main event somewhat surprised me. Damian Maia, 19-6, fighting in Brazil, takes on Ryan LaFleur, sort of come out of nowhere. Not a flashy guy, Ryan LaFleur. He's 11-0. And I remember seeing him in his first fight in the UFC and thinking, this guy's a lunch pail guy, but we can make some money on this guy because he's not flashy, pale white guy, nothing spectacular about his game, but he's very relentless and he's got good, he's got good fundamentals. He's a smart fighter. He doesn't do stupid things. He takes, he looks for the weakness and he sort of grinds you out. Nice for Ryan LaFleur. He's a favorite in this fight, which somewhat surprised me to see him at $150 here, Lou. It's nice for LaFleur, but this is a big step up in class. And everything that LaFleur does, yeah, I mean, Jake Shields sort of bored everyone to death and beat him. We've seen Maia, lose like this, to a guy like Jake Shields before. But, I don't think LaFleur can bully him in the same way that Shields did. I like Maia in this fight.
You're bringing up great points, Gabriel. Yes, I don't think it's any embarrassment to lose to Shields in any capacity. Maia has beat guys like Yakovlev. He beat Fitch. Of course, he lost to Rory and Shields. No embarrassment there. He also beat Rick Story, a very strong wrestling-based striker. And I view LaFleur similarly to Story in at least style. LaFleur's big wins, really, McGee's no trophy. John Howard's no trophy. Ponzinibbio, a guy that recently won on that Brazilian card, is a victim of LaFleur. But I tend to agree with you here. When this line came out close to pick'em, I raised an eyebrow thinking Maia might be worthy of a little bit of a look. I expected the money to go the other way. I can see that the money's going to the younger man with a little bit of reach. But these guys are both lefties, and Maia is still a Brazilian fighting at home in front of Brazilians, and at plus 130 or so, pending weigh-ins, I like Maia. I agree with you completely.
You know, you look at Maia, and as you mentioned, you look at the losses, and that's what we're always looking at. It's not so much the record. Who did they lose to? Sometimes, losses can be more impressive than wins. And not to take anything away from LaFleur, because he is a real grinder. But like you said, John Howard, Court McGee, Ben Holloway, Santiago, okay, nice win, step up in class. And as far as Maia is concerned, listen, Jake Shields' been left for dead a couple of times, but he's always a dangerous fighter just because he can nullify you, and he can do it to anybody. I mean, we've seen that in the past. And then, Rory's one of the best in the world right now, young man. I think people are missing the boat on this one with Damian Maia. So what do you make here of Josh Koscheck taking this fight on such short notice? We see fighters take fights on short notice, normally after they win quickly in a knockout. Normally, or if they win quickly via submission and they don't take a lot of damage, we don't normally see a guy who's lost 4 fights in a row, who just got nearly choked to death, take a fight 3 weeks later again. This is very, very strange, especially in a vet like Koscheck that doesn't really need the money. This is bizarre to me, but conversely, you got Eric Silva was a 4-1 favorite, Lou, against Mike Rhodes. Now he's a 4-1 favorite against Josh Koscheck. So are Mike Rhodes and Josh Koscheck the same? I don't think Silva should be a 4-1 favorite, but I don't know what to make of Koscheck anymore.
Yeah, I agree. The way I figure Josh Koscheck is consummate professional. He has only 1 fight left on his current UFC contract, and so maybe this is a way for the UFC to do a couple of things. Let Kaz satisfy his contract, get him in and out of there, let him move on to training and his other endeavors. And the guy is a smart businessman. It's also a way of trying to continue the growth and the fervor of the UFC in Brazil by giving a guy in Silva who they thought was a future up-and-comer and it's turned out to be actually a disappointment. And so maybe this gets some hype behind Silva, the younger man, the taller man, sports a little bit of reach, but this would be a hard fight for me to take on either side. There's no way I'm laying 4-1 on Silva, and it would be hard for me to take Kaz at +3 or 330 where I'm looking at him stand right now.
And really, if you look at Kaz's losses, once again, there's no shame in losing to the guys that he's losing to. He's fighting the best in the world. You look at the murderer's row that he went through, I guess with the exception of Ellenberger, who's been struggling recently. But once you've been knocked out a couple of times and you're 37, 38 years old, Lou, the luster of the chin wears off and you're always very, very susceptible. And now he gets choked. I mean, I know he lost to Johnny Hendricks via decision, but other than that, man, he's either been knocked out. Woodley knocked him out. Lawler knocked him out. Then he gets choked out. He's lost in vicious fashion. So you just have to wonder how durable he is. And at this stage, can Koscheck do what John Fitch did? Because you look at Silva, and similar, we were just talking about LaFleur. You look at Silva, and when he loses, he gets bullied. Dung Young Kim pushed him around and bullied him. John Fitch just stole his will and bullied him. I don't know if Koscheck can bully him. I think he can take him down, but he can also get dropped. For betting purposes, I sort of agree with what you just said. I'm not in a hurry to touch either side here.
No, if anything, I see a little trend when I marked the openers to the over-under 1.5. It was -120 a side. I see it -140 to the under on this one. Those guys that caught Koscheck on the chin were big, strong bangers. And Silva tends to go in there and swing from the third row. Now, if Kaz can get him into the second round, late into the second round to the third, Silva's got a great opportunity of sucking wind and running out of gas. I just can't see it happening. If you had a gun to my head, I might have to take a little look at that under.